Erik Halterman of RotoWire here with 5 players to pick up this weekend, starting on the mound with Braxton Garrett of the Marlins. And I'm getting into potential trouble here because I'm recording this right before he's about to make a start against Arizona, but I think it's going to be okay. I loved Garrett in the spring and was drafting him everywhere until he went down with some shoulder troubles that cost him about the first 6 weeks of the season. And now he's available in far too many leagues because of that injury and because of the fact that he gave up 11 runs across his first 2 starts, but 13 strikeouts against 3 walks means that along with his 10.24 ERA in those 2 starts, he had a 2.95 SIERA. I'll trust the ERA estimators a lot more than the small sample ERA on this one, and I want to take a chance on Garrett given that he had very solid numbers last season, above average in all 3 of strikeout rate, walk rate, and ground ball rate. Moving on to Cole Irvin, another left-handed starting pitcher. Irvin is a particularly boring soft-tossing lefty, but what better spot for one of those is there than the new Camden Yards? Great win potential now in Baltimore, and lineups that are stacked with righties against a lefty like Irvin will have to contend with the toughest left field wall in baseball. Irvin hasn't had a lockdown rotation spot this year, and frankly his career numbers don't really merit one, but there's a spot available now with John Means out with a forearm strain and Dean Kramer out with a tricep strain. So let's take a chance on a fine starter in an ideal spot and try to pick up some wins. Next, let's move to the offense and go with Luis Matos. He got up to around 50% rostership last week after grabbing 11 RBI over a 2-game stretch, but he really should be up, I think, much closer to 100%. Matos has elite contact ability, as seen in his 4% strikeout rate so far, or his 13% mark last year. Also had a single-digit strikeout rate at every stop in the upper minors over the last couple seasons. Only 2 homers in 76 games last year for Matos, but already has 2 this season. And hey, if all he ever has is that elite contact plus everyday playing time in center field, now that Jung-Hoo Lee is out for the year with a shoulder injury, elite contact plus everyday playing time is already pretty interesting. And for a 22-year-old showing a little bit more power and maybe a little bit of speed as well, let's see where this one goes. Next, Schneider of the Blue Jays. He was someone who played a brief stretch late last season and had a ton of power and some major contact questions. 8 homers in 35 games, but a strikeout rate north of 30%. And so he didn't earn regular at-bats early this season, but he's earning them lately thanks to some excellent performances. He's got his strikeout rate down to 27% this year, which is not a big jump, but it's a step in the right direction for sure. He's already had 5 homers in 42 games, and a 97th percentile barrel rate means that he could really hit plenty of homers if he keeps earning more and more playing time. He also has a 92nd percentile chase rate, so he does a lot of things right at the plate, even if he swings and misses too much. He also hits a ton of fly balls. He's got a fly ball rate north of 50% for the 2nd straight season. So he's really doing the most to get everything out of the power he has. And now he's playing every day and using his excellent eye in the leadoff role. Gotta love the playing time for an interesting, if flawed, player in Schneider. Finally, Masyn Winn, 22-year-old shortstop for the Cardinals, who has cut his strikeout rate to just 11% in May. And now that might really be all he is, a contact and speed shortstop, because his barrel rate is below 1% on the year and his hard hit rate is below 30%, only has 2 homers, but he's hitting 295 with 7 steals. That's numbers that he should be able to continue if he makes this kind of contact. And for a young player with a lot of potential who's playing quite a lot, 40 starts at shortstop in his first 49 games, that could only increase as the season goes on. He's going to make a ton of contact with his 91st percentile whiff rate, and that's probably all you need for a middle infielder late in your roster. Not necessarily a star here yet for Winn, but a good speed, defense, and contact middle infielder goes a long way on a lot of rosters. For more names, check out the Saturday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast. It'll be Ryan Boyer and Jorge Martin this week because I am home celebrating my brother's graduation. Congratulations, Blake, although I would not recommend picking you up in any fantasy leagues, unfortunately.